Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And if this is your first time on the channel, thank you for stopping by, and please consider subscribing to the channel as we talk all things engineering, technology, and finance. Also, don't forget to hit the notification button as well so you are notified whenever we post a new video. If this video provides any value to you, make sure you also hit the like button below as it helps out our channel tremendously. Now, if you're returning back to the channel and you're already subscribed, thank you, welcome back, and I'm glad to see you in another episode. In today's video, I'm gonna show you guys how to upgrade the RAM on your computer. Here in my hand is a ThinkPad made by Lenovo, and it's a T14 Gen 1. And this is the computer that we're going to use today for demonstration purposes on how to upgrade the RAM. Now, some may be asking, why would you want to upgrade your RAM? How do you know how to upgrade it? What do you buy in order to upgrade the RAM? All these questions will be answered, so stay tuned. For those who don't know, RAM stands for random access memory. It's basically short-term memory for the computer. So think about when you're working on something on the computer. Let's say, for example, a Microsoft Word document. Whenever you are typing and you are creating that Word document, all that work that you're doing is typically stored in RAM, in short-term memory. Once you are ready to actually save your work, and you hit the file and you hit the save button, then it transfers the data from random access memory, or RAM, or short-term memory into long-term memory, which is your hard drive. And your hard drive can consist of either regular spinning disk, or it can consist of NVMe drives. There's all different kinds of drives that are available for a hard drive, but most importantly, it just saves it from a short-term to a long-term storage solution. Now, my wife has been doing a lot of work recently where she lives in Excel, and in Excel, she works with massive amounts of data, and she's constantly opening up 4, 5, 6. At some points, I've even seen her open up 10 different Excel sheets. All that has to open up in short-term memory in order to be able for her to work. As you can imagine, the demand of her work is very, very high for short-term memory than it is on long-term memory, because she's constantly opening up multiple Excel sheets and working with a lot of data. So she's been having issues where Excel sometimes hangs. Sometimes you'll see the spinning circle in Windows, and it goes and it goes and it goes. And then sometimes the program says not responding as it's trying to load all the information that you're asking it to load. So that's one of the reasons why you want to upgrade the RAM. You want to make sure that you have enough short-term memory in order to meet the demands of your work. So I'm going to give you guys 4 simple steps on how to make sure that we upgrade the RAM successfully. So step number 1, you need to get familiar with your computer. Now, what do I mean by getting familiar with your computer? If you don't know this, most manufacturers of computers have documentation on their computer, meaning what are the specs of the computer, how to take care of the computer, how to upgrade parts in the computer. All this information can be found on the company's website. And in our case, that we have a Lenovo product here, we can go on Lenovo's support page. We can look up all the documentation that is specific to the laptop that we have.
Welcome to my desktop, where we are going to take a look at step number 1, as mentioned, which is getting familiar with your computer. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up a new tab in our web browser here. So let's go ahead and open up a new tab. And since you recall it was a Lenovo laptop, we're going to head over to Lenovo's website. So here we are on Lenovo.com. And just like I mentioned, in any computer that you buy, every single manufacturer has their own support page where you can find all kinds of support for your particular product. So we're going to head over to the support tab here, and we're looking for Lenovo's laptop, specifically the T series that I have in this video. So let's go ahead and head over to PC. And once we hover over PC, we can do 2 options. You can either detect the product, or you can view PC support. So detecting the product is they'll allow you to install software on your machine, and this software will automatically detect what kind of computer you have and take you to the right support page. I'm actually using another computer in order to figure out the documentation, so we're going to actually skip the detect product, but we're going to go on the view PC support page, and we can browse for the product. Since I already know what it is, it's a laptop, and we're going to look for ThinkPad, and these are all the different ThinkPads that they have. So we're specifically looking for the T series, and let's go into sub-series, and we're specifically looking for the T14 Gen 1, and it's type TOSO/TOS1. Now, if you're confused as to which specific product you may have, because sometimes they might have similar gens. For example, you can see here, you have TOS2 and TOS3, which is different from TOSO and TOS1. Typically on the product, there's a serial number. Make sure you use the serial number in order to figure out which one you have. I specifically already figured that out using the serial number on the computer, so I know that it's TOSO, TOS1. So we're gonna go ahead and click that. Now that we're on the support page for my specific Lenovo laptop, we can go ahead and click on guides and manuals. And let's head over to the user guide. And one of the things that we're interested in is getting familiar with a laptop, meaning we are interested in learning how to upgrade our RAM. So how do we go about upgrading our RAM? We can actually find that here in this documentation, and it'll actually tell you everything you need to know about upgrading the RAM. So let's head over to the section that talks about replacing the RAM. We'll head over to CRU replacement. So CRU stands for customer replaceable units. And some of the things that you can replace here are memory modules, which is one of the things that we're interested in. So now that we know that we can replace the memory module, let's go ahead and take a look at where we can find how to replace it. So we're going to open up replace a CRU, and we're going to look at the memory module. Well, what do you know? Here's all the information on how do you replace the memory module. So as you can see, based on this documentation, the innards of the computer, you have the memory module right in the middle here. And this goes into step-by-step in details of how do you replace the memory module. It even talks about the procedures of how you do that. Step 1, to disable the built-in battery. Step 2, turn off the computer and disconnect it from AC or any other connected cables. Step 3, remove the nano SIM tray. And in my case, we don't have that, so we can skip step 3. Step 4 is you remove the base assembly cover. And step 5 is you open up the latches on both sides of the memory modules and you install it based on the pictures that you see down below. Now that we know that we can do steps 1 through 3 without removing the cover, well, let's get familiar with how we remove the cover in order to do step 4. And we can do that by clicking on this little link here. And the T14 replacement procedures for removing the base cover assembly is listed right here in detail. So as you can see, you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver. And it even tells you what are the procedures, which is similar to what we saw in the memory module. So you disable the battery, you connect all cables, including AC, you turn over the computer, and then you start loosening the screws. There are 6 screws. And once you loosen all 6 screws, you can see here that you start prying the latches, and you do that in an alphabetical order. And once you start prying those latches, you can start to see that the base cover assembly comes off right from the computer. And once you remove the base cover assembly, you can then install the module inside the computer, the memory module. And you do that by following the memory module's instructions. And once you're done with that, then you can reinstall the base cover assembly. And you do that by following step 7 here. And it shows you that you install it in a certain manner. And once you're done with that, you just tighten the screws back up and you're done. The other thing that I want to get you guys familiar with is how do you go about finding what parts you need for this computer or what memory module you need. This particular PDF gives you a product specifications of the ThinkPad T14 Gen 1, which is a specific machine that we have. And you can see everything about it as far as what ports it has, what's available as far as configuration for different processors, graphic cards, and so on and so forth. The one thing that we are interested in is the memory module because we want to upgrade the RAM. So if we go over to memory, you see here, there's 2 different types of configurations that this computer can support. There is 40 gigs and 48 gigs. Depending on how you had it built from the manufacturers, you can have 8 gigs that are soldered into the computer, or you can have 16 gigs that was soldered in. And you can add a maximum of a 32 gig external memory module, which is what we're interested in adding, to increase the memory to either 40 or 48 gigs, depending on which model that you have. Now, in our particular case, we had the 16 gig soldered onboard memory, and we're gonna add a 32 gig RAM module in order to upgrade to 48 gigs. And this even tells you here that there's only 1 slot available, so meaning that the maximum you can put in 1 slot is 32 gigs. And the type of memory that you're going to need is DDR4 2666.
Now that you've seen the documents for the Lenovo computer and you understand where to find the information on what RAM is needed, how to remove the covers in order to install it, how to install it properly, what are the steps you need to take in order to make sure that before you even touch touch the computer, these things need to be done. All of that, it was listed in the documentation as I showed you. Now we move on to step number 2. And step number 2 is price shopping. As you saw in step number 1 told you what you needed. And one of the things that you can do now is you can price shop the part that you need. And one of the things that I find interesting when most people pay somebody else to do the work, or they just don't bother wanting to learn how to do it themselves, they give up the ability to price shop their parts. I don't know if you know this, but typically, whenever you are purchasing a part for a particular computer, or even say, for example, a car, most people who are doing the work for you actually put a markup on the particular part that you're looking for. And it's no different in this situation. And here we're gonna take a look at an example of what that markup looks like. And you can see that an official part from Lenovo cost X amount of dollars versus I can get the same exact part to do the same exact thing for a lot less than the actual cost of the manufacturer. So let's jump onto the computer again and I'll show you exactly what I mean.
When you have somebody do the work for you as far as upgrading the computer or anything along those lines, and especially in general, anything in life, right? You can even apply the same concept to like car repairs and so on and so forth. You give up the ability to understand what is the markup on the particular parts and labor that you get from having somebody else do the service for you. Now let's do some price shopping here so we can see exactly what I mean. Here we are on the Lenovo's page and we're in the support of the particular product, which is the TOSO or T14 Gen 1 ThinkPad. And we went ahead and we clicked the parts. That way we can see what's compatible with this particular computer. And we see here all the particular parts that are available from Lenovo in order to upgrade this computer. Now there's 967 results as you can see here, but we're not interested in going through all these particular results. So let's bring this down a little bit by selecting a commodity. And what we're interested in is memory, because that's what we're going to upgrade on the computer. As you can see here, these are all the memory modules that are available through Lenovo in order to buy it and install it in the computer. We're interested in a 32 gig module and we need one, as we saw from the notes or the spec sheet. As you can see here, it looks like we have 3 options in order to get the memory modules. Looks like we have a Samsung, a Micron, and I'm gonna assume it's Hinks is how you pronounce that. Any one of these will be compatible with the computer. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose Micron since I've used Micron products before and they turned out pretty well. But either one is fine and you can choose either or. Now here's where we go in order to shop for the part. We click on lenovo.encompasspass.com. That website, which is already up here, this is where it takes you and you have to type in the model number or the part number in order to find it. So let's go back to our parts list here, and here's the part number. So we're gonna go ahead and copy and paste this. We're gonna put this in the search bar for the Lenovo Encompass website. So let's go ahead and search for that. And we found our part here, as you can see. So it looks like we have our part here that it came up with. And interestingly enough, even though I gave the part number of a Micron product, it looks like they came up with a substitution of a Samsung product. And the thing to note here is that it is compatible with the computer, given that we were able to put in the part number and this website found an equivalent. I'm assuming that they recommended this particular product because they didn't have the Micron product in stock. We see here that we have a memory DDR4 3200 and it's a Samsung product. Now here's the thing, as you can see here, this particular memory module is $334.95. Let's go price shop this and we're gonna see what this particular product costs on the open market. Let's head over to Amazon and we're gonna type in our DDR4 and we need 2666. And remember, that's what was on the spec sheet. Now we're gonna filter this out a little bit so that way we can find what we need. Remember, this is gonna be for a laptop. So let's click laptop. And remember, we're looking for a 1 stick memory module of 32 gigs. So let's go ahead and find that. Now that we've selected 1 stick, let's filter even more our results and make sure that we only show 32 gig modules. And we can see that by clicking the memory capacity. And as you can see here, here are our results. Now, the one that I actually purchased and we're going to use for this video is actually a crucial memory module. And we can scroll down and we can see it's over here. And as you can see here, we purchased this particular RAM module back in July 9th. This is a DDR4 3200 megahertz. Or one of the great things about this memory module is it could also be clocked down to what we need. And remember, we need 2666. So here it is, 2666 megahertz. And this will actually fit our Lenovo product. And one of the great things is this memory module is sold on Amazon for $113.50 as of this recording. Now I want you guys to see the big difference there. You have $334.95, and I'm assuming you also have to put taxes and shipping costs on top of that versus $113.50. And of course, if you have Prime, you'll have obviously shipping included, but you would just have to pay taxes on the $113.50. So this is a great example of just doing a little bit of price shopping here and finding the information on your own. You can save yourself $221.45 if we're not capturing any of the taxes or any of the shipping costs. But just on the price of the memory module alone, $221.45. How incredible is that? Now that we've seen how much money we can save on the memory module itself, let's see how much we can save if we were to pay somebody in order to do this work for us. Now, one of the things that's popular amongst a lot of folks is they typically take their computer to Best Buy or Geek Squad in order to do the work. So let's take a look and see how much they charge. So let's head over to Best Buy's page. They'll install one customer supplied internal external PC component. And by installing that for you, they're going to charge you $40. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes when I've gone into Best Buy and done some of their Geek Squad services, not only will they charge you the installation fee, but I've also seen they will charge you a diagnostic fee in order to see what is wrong with the computer. Is what you're doing the right thing to do? Because if you show up and say, hey, I want you to install this component, chances are that they're going to say, why? What are you looking to do? They're trying to figure out if you're on the right path, and they're going to charge you a diagnostic fee in order to do that. So let's take a look at what that diagnostic fee looks like. So they're going to see that you're going to be charged $149 plus on top of that, what you saw previously, and previously was the hardware installation of $39.99. So again, $149.99 just to diagnose and tell you what your issue is, or if you're even on the right path. And then on top of that, $39.99 in order to actually install the hardware in your computer. That brings us to a total of $189.98. If you've been following the math now, let's take a look at what our total savings is if we're just going to do everything ourselves, meaning we're going to find the information, we're going to get familiar with the computer, we're going to price shop. Once we're done price shopping, we go ahead and do the work ourselves. What does that come out to? Not adding in any taxes or any particular shipping cost, we saved ourselves a total of $411.43 just by doing everything ourselves. That includes our $189.98 in order to have services done to the computer by a third party, in this case, Best Buy. And then on top of that, we also saved with the memory module by price shopping that ourselves and not getting it directly with the manufacturer. And as you saw, it was a savings of $221.45. Really incredible how much money you can save once you arm yourselves with the knowledge in order to get things done.
Now that you have seen the parts that you need, how much it costs, and also as well, we took a brief look at what some of those services may cost if you were to decide to have somebody else do the work for you. Now we can move on to step number 3. And step number 3 is installation. So now we can actually install the part in the computer. Now that we're familiar with the computer, the part that it needs, and how to actually install it, because the documentation tells you how to do it, we can now go ahead and install it once the part has arrived and it's in your hand, like I have here with me. So let's go ahead and do the installation of the memory module in the Lenovo computer.
Before making any changes to the computer or really touching anything at all, we need to go into the BIOS of the computer. And going into the BIOS of the computer allows us to do two things. Number one, we are able to check to see what our current configuration is. So that way, when we make the changes, we can see if the changes has changed our current configuration. So we should see from 16 gigs to 48 gigs after adding the 32 gig RAM module. And the second thing that we need to do, and if you follow the user's manual guide for this particular laptop, we need to disable fast startup and the built-in battery before we touch any of the internal components. First step is to enter the BIOS, and we enter the BIOS by pressing F1 on the keyboard. Here we are in the BIOS, but before we make any changes to the BIOS, let's take a look at the installed memory on the computer. And we do that so that way we know if what we did actually made any changes. So as we zoom in here, we can see that the installed memory on the computer is 16,384 megabytes, a little over 16 gigs of total RAM. So let's make some changes to see if we can upgrade the 16 to 48 gigs in total. Next step in the process is to go to the config tab. So let's click on that. Once we are in the config tab, we're going to head over to power. Once we are in the power section, we're going to scroll down until we get to disable built-in battery. We're going to click on that, and then we're going to hit yes on that option, and the computer should automatically turn off. As soon as the computer is powered down, we're going to turn over the computer and we're going to follow the instructions shown on the screen, which is part of the user's manual guide. We're going to loosen the screws, and after we are done loosening the screws, we're going to pry the latches in the specific order as shown in the manual in order to be able to remove the base cover. With the base cover removed, we're now ready to install the memory module inside the Lenovo laptop. If you're wondering where the module goes right in the center as I'm pointing to it here. Here in my hand is a 32 gigabyte Crucial memory stick module. As I open the packaging for the memory module, one thing I want you to note here is how I hold the memory module when I'm removing it from the packaging. I'm holding it in the corner, and as you can see those black squares there where I'm pointing to, those are the actual memory modules themselves on the RAM stick. We want to make sure that we don't touch that and we hold the RAM module like so. Now we can go ahead and install the memory module inside of the computer, and we do that by following the instructions in the user's guide. And the user's guide tells us that the notch end of the memory module stick has to face the contact edge of the memory slot. And remember, we're going to come in at about 20-degree angle, and once we do that, we're going to press down on it in order to secure it. But keep in mind of how we press down on it. We use the sticker to press down on it to make sure that we don't touch the memory modules and quite possibly damage the memory stick.
So now that we've seen the installation of the memory module inside the Lenovo laptop, the fourth and final step of the process is testing and cleanup. Now, before you put the cover back on completely, you still want to put it on just a little bit, just to make sure that any electrical components are not touching anything else. We're going to put back on the cover without screwing it in, and then we're going to test it to make sure that the computer can read the memory module and has successfully been able to see the upgrade in memory. And once we verify all that, then we can finally put the finishing touches by putting the cover back on, and as well as tightening the screws that we loosened in order to remove the cover. We're going to make sure that all that is back on nice and tight and secure.
Now we can go ahead and install the base cover to the laptop. And remember, we're only going to install it just enough to turn over the laptop and make sure that the computer is able to read the memory module with no problems. We are back in the BIOS after partially installing the base cover, just to make sure that our installation of the memory module actually worked. And if we zoom in here, we can now see that we have a total of 49,152 megabytes. We have a little bit over than what the spec sheet told us, which was a maximum of 48 gigs, but that's still okay. We'll take more than less. Now that we verified that the computer's memory was successfully upgraded, let's go ahead and finish putting on the base cover by making sure all the latches are in place, and we're also going to tighten up the screws.
All right, so there you have it, everyone. You've just learned how to successfully upgrade the RAM inside your computer. Now, more importantly, you learned a thing or two in the process, and hopefully you can apply it to your situation where you can save yourself hundreds and hundreds of dollars and get the performance that you need when you're working on the computer. Now, this video is kind of interesting because I look at it as if you teach a man or woman to fish, they will eat for a lifetime. And hopefully this video has taught you how to eat for a lifetime. Now, remember, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so that way you're notified whenever we post a new video to the channel. And if you found this video to be helpful, give me a thumbs up, as it helps out the channel a lot. And then lastly too, don't forget to share with friends and family members so that way they can learn how to upgrade the RAM on their computer and they don't have to struggle with a computer that doesn't meet the demands of their work. So that's all for this video. I'll see you guys on the next one.